Welcome to Teaching Truth. Travel documentaries are programs which I always enjoy watching, particularly those presented by Michael Palin. One of his earliest travel documentaries was Around the World in 80 Days, and he wrote a book to accompany that particular travel documentary series. It's a fascinating documentary. It's a fascinating book. And part of his travels saw him in Egypt, crossing the desert on his journey around the world in 80 days. So why do I begin our reflections by taking you to Michael Palin's book and documentary, Around the World in 80 Days? Well, today we want to consider not Michael Palin, who went around the world in 80 days, but Moses, a traveller who went around the desert for 40 years. And today we come to the point at which he is, as it were, exiting the desert after those 40 years, and he meets his brother Aaron. Moses is, by this stage, 80 years of age, and his brother Aaron is 83. Moses has been around the desert for 40 years. Today we want to focus, by way of sketching in the background, on the situation as we, in our reflections this week, look at Moses and his brother, and of the encounter which together in Exodus chapter 7 they had with Pharaoh. If you have your Bible, can I invite you to turn, if you will, to Exodus chapter 4. And we're going to read a few verses from verse 15 of Exodus chapter 4, simply to sketch in the picture for ourselves. Moses, you'll recall from our reflections last week, has had the encounter with God at the burning bush. Moses has come up with all sorts of excuses as to why he is not the man to do what God is asking him to do. And Moses effectively says, Lord, please send someone else to do it. I really think you've got the wrong man here. Verse 14 of Exodus 4. The Lord's anger burned against Moses, and he said, what about your brother Aaron, the Levite? I know he can speak well. He is already on his way to meet you, and his heart will be glad when he sees you. You shall speak to him and put words in his mouth. I will help both of you speak and teach you what to do. He will speak to the people for you, and it will be as if he were your mouth, and as if you were God to him. But take this staff in your hand, so that you can perform miraculous signs with it. Then Moses went back to Jethro, his father-in-law, and said to him, let me go back to my own people in Egypt to see if any of them are still alive. Jethro said, go, and I wish you well. And so the story continues in Exodus chapter 5 and in Exodus chapter 6, where Moses returns to Egypt. Moses and Aaron bring together all the elders of the Israelites and share with them what the Lord had said to Moses. And Moses and Aaron then went to Pharaoh to, as it were, plead the case of the Israelites with them. We have that great chapter on bricks without straw in Exodus chapter 5. where Pharaoh says they've to go and gather their own straw to make the work harder. Pharaoh was a hard taskmaster. God then promises deliverance to the people in Exodus chapter 6, and we cut in, as it were, to the story, to the journey that Moses has been on as he exits the desert after 40 years in Exodus chapter 6, verse 28. And we read this, that when the Lord spoke to Moses in Egypt, he said to him, I am the Lord. Tell Pharaoh, king of Egypt, everything I tell you. But Moses said to the Lord, since I speak with faltering lips, why would Pharaoh listen to me? Then the Lord said to Moses, see, I have made you like a god to Pharaoh, and your brother Aaron will be your prophet. You are to say everything I command you, and your brother Aaron is to tell Pharaoh to let the Israelites go out of his country. But I will harden Pharaoh's heart, and though I multiply my miraculous signs and wonders in Egypt, he will not listen to you. Then I will lay my hand on Egypt, and with my mighty acts of judgment I will bring out my divisions. My people, the Israelites, and the Egyptians will know that I am the Lord when I stretch out my hand against Egypt and bring the Israelites out of it. Moses and Aaron did just as the Lord commanded them. Moses was 80 years old and Aaron 83 when they spoke to Pharaoh. The Lord said to Moses and Aaron, when Pharaoh says to you, perform a miracle, then say to Aaron, take your staff and throw it down before Pharaoh, and it will become a snake. So Moses and Aaron went to Pharaoh and did just as the Lord commanded. Aaron threw his staff down in front of Pharaoh and his officials, and it became a snake. Pharaoh then summoned the wise men and sorcerers, and the Egyptian magicians also did the same things by their secret arts. Each one threw down his staff and it became a snake. But Aaron's staff swallowed up their staffs. Yet Pharaoh's heart became hard and he would not listen to them, just as the Lord had said. Moses has been wandering around the desert for 40 years. He is now with Aaron, his 83-year-old brother, about to speak and to encounter Pharaoh. That's the situation in which Moses finds himself, and the situation which will provide the platform for our reflections in Teaching Truth this week.